for this discussion. And Jalen, as we get your opinion on this, what do you think? Should there be an asterisk next to the 2020 NBA champion if the NBA is able to return?
Absolutely not. Dominique is right. Max, I like your shirt, but I hate your argument, and here's why. Because usually that pertains to something that disgraces the game. When you talk injuries, matchups, what about sometimes in the NBA when the best teams in a conference, say, for example, this year, the Los Angeles Lakers and the Clippers, I bet you would take them in the finals as the two best teams, but they won't make it to the finals. When you look back at the history of the game, of course, people like us, Max, who analyze and overanalyze and do this for a living, look deeper into the box score and be like, in 1987, such and such was hurt in the Western Conference Finals. And in 1993, the two best teams happened. And that year it was a lockout. And now fans don't have that wealth of knowledge in theory for generations prior. So people just ring count. And that's what people go do now. And you are too. You and I both know if Kawhi Leonard win the championship this year and win finals MVP, you're going to put that on his tab like last year against Toronto, like last year against the Warriors when they were injured in the finals. Never happened. Is that accurate?
He said it yesterday. Yesterday he said it. Go ahead, Max.
There's a big difference between saying that this player got hurt or under normal circumstances and what's happening this year. What an asterisk really means is there's something here that you don't see. Some material has been omitted, like look at the footnote, basically. And to pretend that this season doesn't fall under that category, it's just not right. Now, I appreciate the idea that the asterisk in sports has been stigmatized. And really, that began in 1961 when Roger Maris broke Babe Ruth's home run record, single season. He hit 61 home runs. Sports writers wanted to put an asterisk because Babe Ruth was better and they were in love with Babe Ruth. And because he had an extra, that season there was an extra 8 games played. Instead of 154, it's 162 games played. So he had more games to do it. So what they were saying with the asterisk is, look, this is not an apples to apples comparison. There's more information you need to know here than just the number of home runs because it was done, he had more attempts to do it. Theoretically, everyone had more attempts to do it. So here the same sort of thing applies, at least in people's minds. If you go down the list in, who won this season and what happened this season, particularly if they were to finish out the regular season, by the way, and you were to see 82 games played, right? There's omitted information there. It wasn't business as usual. Stigma aside, that's true.
How is that different from any other year? Like, there is always omitted information. There's always more context to every season. And we talk about last year because it's the perfect opportunity. 10 years from now, we're not going to say Kawhi only got one MVP in the finals and only got one championship because he didn't deserve it because they got hurt. Like, there's always context that we leave out. And I understand you want to do footnotes, but you can do it for every year. And you start talking about records. There was a time when the NFL season was only 14 games. It's now up to 16, and soon it's going to be up to 17. We're not going to put asterisks next to all the all-time leading passers or rushers that come up when there are more games. Like, it's just the way it is. There is context that we can either choose to include all the context or not include all the context. So if we're not going to do it for any other season, I don't see why we should do it for this season. We'll know it was unique, but we shouldn't diminish it.
And also,
guys, this comes down to, go ahead.
80% of the season is already in the books, Max. So we pretty much know who are the teams that have made themselves contenders. And you're right, something extraordinary can happen where the Lakers could potentially play against a 10 seed and lose in the first round. That's just basketball. But you know the difference between the NBA and the Super Bowl or the NCAA tournament? It's a 7-game series.
Right.
So therefore, the best team normally wins. That's what works in the NBA.
Right.
And so for me, if you could get 10 teams from each conference, look at the bottom of the West. I need Luka, Ja, Dame, and Zion. And in the East, John Wall could possibly come back to play with the Washington Wizards. So there won't be an asterisk
arguing that it doesn't make it more exciting.
7-game series.
These unusual circumstances, I do think, inject some randomness into it. Even with a 7-game series, I think you're more likely to get unusual outcomes. But guys, to sit here with straight faces and pretend that although each season is unique And there are excuses in every year that this is not the most unusual season that we've experienced, is not an honest accounting. The reason it'll be a mental asterisk for people is because this is the most unusual season we've
Max,
ever.
I got a question for you. What's the most unusual circumstances in a season that the Yankees won the World Series?
In which they won the World Series? Well, in 81, they lost the World Series, but that was a strike season. Dodgers won it, and the league maybe played 110 games. So, like, that
They won 27. They've won 27 World Series. Tell me the year that they won a World Series when somebody on the other team did something like that.
They lost the World Series in 01 after 9/11. That one jumps out. Those were unusual circumstances, and I recall them, but this is different.